America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network, and today we are joined by Tennessee State Representative Jody Barrett. Jody is also looking to make a run at Congress and represent Tennessee's 7th District, and the special election takes place October 7th. And early voting is already underway. Representative Barrett, thanks so much for joining Main Street Matters.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in politics? What sort of gave you that calling to go into politics? It's, a lot of people think it's kind of a blood sport, but I'm always interested what motivates people to take that step.
Well, I'm a small business owner myself. I have a law practice and a real estate title company in my hometown. And coming out of COVID, I think, after 25 years of practicing law and being really focused on getting my career going and taking care of my family and the employees that work for me, you start looking around and seeing what's happening and some of the things that are not necessarily going very well in your community and in your state. And for me personally, I thought, well, somebody needs to do something about changing some of these things and making it a little bit better. And usually we think when we say that, we mean somebody else needs to do something. And so I just found myself in a situation where this state representative seat opened up very unexpectedly. The gentleman that held it before me dropped out about 15 days before the filing deadline, announcing that he wasn't going to run for re-election, left everyone scrambling. And the honest answer is I ran because I didn't want the other guy to run unopposed and thought he needed to have somebody to run against him and keep him honest and give the voters another alternative to vote for. And they took to me. And so here I am 3 years later, still serving.
Interesting. And so the seat that you're currently running for in Congress, Tennessee, it's the 7th District. That seat sounds like unexpectedly opened up too. So you seem to have a streak going there for you. What made you decide to run for U.S. Congress?
It is a similar situation. I did not really have a burning desire to get into politics at the state level. And now I'm probably even less inclined to try to strive higher and go to D.C. as I know that is a totally different ball of wax that you're dealing with up there. But again, this situation kind of unexpectedly opened up with Congressman Mark Green's resignation. A lot of the people that are around this district that have watched me work for the last 3 years saw my voting record and the way I've conducted myself and the type of bills that I've run. I'm probably the most conservative member of the Tennessee State Legislature. I've got two different agencies that have given me 100% conservative voting record. So that kind of has gotten me some notoriety across the district. And so folks just started reaching out saying, hey, this seat's opened up and we really think you'd be the best guy for the job. We'd like for you to consider doing it. And so after much hesitation and prayer and discussion with my wife, we decided to go ahead and give it a shot, and we'll see how it turns out.
I feel like that's a story that I've heard a lot from folks, is that when they start getting that call from folks around them saying, you're the person, we think you could make a difference here, that's when you really have to take a step back. And obviously, it's a family decision to decide to run, especially in Washington. I would say today it's truly a blood sport, and it's so divisive up there. I mean, you're in Tennessee, which is, a conservative state. Obviously, legislature is conservative, so it'd be a different. You said a whole different ball of wax, I think was your expression.
right?
I would say it's a whole different. It'll be a whole different planet because while I think Republicans have the majority, it's such a slim majority, but it's just so it's so divisive, and sometimes I just get frustrated because, as you know, and I think you probably are with me on this one because most small business owners agree with this statement. I always say that small business owners they don't see parties, they see policy because what they care about is how they can best grow their businesses. And at Job Creators Network, we believe and we know from history that lower taxes, less regulations, better access to credit is what is going to help our small business communities move forward. And you've mentioned yourself that you are a small business owner. Tennessee has a great economic environment. It's one of the few states in this country. I think there's 7 states in the U.S. that don't have a U.S. income tax. I live in one in Florida. Tennessee is another one. And those types of policies are what attract businesses to states. I know you've probably been campaigning like crazy. What are some of the big issues that are facing small businesses in your district?
Well, I think small businesses and farmers alike are kind of dealing with similar issues. It's the input costs, production costs. For small businesses, it's the cost of your employees, particularly when it comes to providing health insurance and benefits. In order to be competitive and attract good employees and then keep good employees that you need to stay with your business, you have to constantly improve the packages that you're offering. It's not just salary, it's also health insurance and 401k and all of those things. And as we've seen, as I've personally seen over the last 23 or 24 years, the cost of providing health insurance to employees has gone up, 1,200, 1,500%, things like that. And so that's really made it very difficult for small business owners to be competitive against the larger folks that are in their industry that they're competing against. And then you also have the farmers that are dealing with the same thing. The cost of equipment, the cost of fuel, fertilizer, the seed itself. If you're a row cropper farmer in Tennessee, it's you may have the best yield that you've ever had and still not be able to make a profit this year. So we're kind of in the same boat together. And when you look at the state seal in Tennessee, there are two things listed: agriculture and commerce. And so they do go hand in hand here in Tennessee.
Yeah, you mentioned healthcare, and that is something that our small business owners talk to us about all the time. I was really glad to see that the One Big Beautiful bill that passed in July actually helped move the ball forward. It's an issue. It's a part of the bill that expands healthcare choice, and it's more free market healthcare choices. Health savings accounts, which have been around for a long time. Some people have them, some don't. But they're an opportunity, obviously, as you probably know, is to put money away tax-free to use for certain healthcare expenses. One of the things that some of our small business owners like is some of the free market healthcare choices that are out there that allow people to use free market alternatives, like something called direct primary care. And these are basically healthcare plans that are outside of insurance. They're kind of like a gym membership.
Hmm.
You pay a monthly fee. It's usually like a Netflix fee, like anywhere from $50 to $100. When they first came out, they were called concierge services, and they were very
Right.
expensive. These are kind of middle class level plans, and they take care of all of your direct primary care needs. What we found out, though, is that the law did not allow people to use their health savings account to pay for those services, and the One Big Beautiful bill does that. So it sounds like a small step forward, but it's actually a really big step forward that moves us closer to more free market care opportunities for small businesses to take advantage of. So I think that's a great thing. We've been promoting it a lot and talking about it. I'm not sure if you've heard from any of your constituents about it.
Well, I think anytime that you are reducing the upfront cost to the employer for providing that healthcare coverage, and you're providing better coverage, because that's the trend that we've been on in the opposite direction. The cost of the premiums have been going up for 15, 20 years, while the actual benefit to the employee has been going down. And we've raised out of pocket expenses, we've raised deductibles, all to keep these premiums somewhat affordable. And so we have to reverse that trend and get it going back in the other direction. And so I do agree with you. This is a step in the right direction. More competition is going to help. And then also being able to allow employers to pool together in larger groups is going to, I think, also allow them to spread the risk. We've got to start working toward that as well.
Yeah, I remember during I believe it was the Obama administration, the end of the second term, association healthcare plans was
Hmm.
what we were moving towards, and what you just talked about, allowing small businesses to pool. I mean, I just thought that was going to be a game changer for small businesses, and unfortunately, a group of AGs across the country filed some lawsuits against it, and basically it's been sitting in Nowheresville for, it killed it, basically the idea. But it would have been a game changer for small businesses. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it would be great for small law practices, 3 to 5 lawyer law firms with, 5 to 10 employees to be able to pool together with other similarly sized firms that are part of an association, whether that's their state bar association or even something that's going across state lines, in order to get a much larger pool of people together to form a group that would then be able to get those costs down. That is something that, as you said, it would be a game changer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And healthcare being a huge cost. We did just avert a major crisis with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and that was making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act tax rates permanent, locking in those lower rates for individuals, but also that 20% small business tax deduction. Bringing back and making permanent the immediate expensing, 100% immediate expensing. What are you hearing from constituents as far as investment, or is there still a need to educate small businesses out there that this is here and it's actually retroactive to January?
Yeah, no, I do think there's a big need for us to educate the folks as to what is actually in the bill. There's been so much misinformation through the media and folks on the other side of the aisle that want to make this out to be a bad thing. There were so many good wins within that bill that, and these things that you're pointing out are the detail things that are kind of lost in the weeds that folks are not really paying attention to, but that's where the nuggets are. There's some really, really good nuggets of wins, particularly for small business owners, that I think are going to have a very positive impact for a long time ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 passed, um, we had small business owners that were making investments in their companies. And I'll give you one really good example. I have a small business owner in Pennsylvania, a small manufacturer, who made the decision to expand the size of his company, hire new people, and pay higher wages, obviously, and add new jobs. And for the first time since he had opened his business in the 15 years that he'd had his company, he was able to offer a retirement plan, a 401k. He'd never been able to afford to do that. And he is in a rural part of Pennsylvania. And what he saw was that they were losing their youth. And he realized that as a member of that community, he needed to be an anchor career company, essentially, and offer a lifetime career so that people could grow with his business and retire. And so those were important things in terms of, I sort of say, the domino effect of good policy, which started with him being able to invest, to his employees being able to have a retirement plan. And I always think if conservatives could tell some of those stories a little bit more specific stories and help connect those dots between the policy and a small business owner and how they're implementing it, that I think, Bill, that we wouldn't have so much trouble with the other side being able to just really put a lot of misinformation out there about this type of policy.
Well, and those are the wins that are very important. I think to me, they're close to my heart because I do represent a rural district that's just on the outside of Nashville, just about 35, 40 miles west of Nashville. The congressional 7th district that I'm running for, you mentioned earlier that I'm running for that special election to replace Congressman Mark Green. There are 14 counties in that district, and 11 of which are rural. And as you know, Tennessee has been one of the most popular states for people to move to because of our cost of living, because of our tax policy, and our pro business stance that we have here in the state legislature. Um, because of all this growth and influx of people that we have, we've seen a big spike in our cost of living here. Real estate prices have gone up, our property values are going up. That means property taxes and insurance is going up, and we're starting to feel that wave that rock got thrown in the middle of the pond in Nashville, and it's rippling out to the rural areas as well. And so while the cost of living is going up, wages are not going up at the same rate. And so we do need more investment out here in the rural counties to provide jobs that can actually help people afford to live a good life in the rural areas. And that's when we do that, when we find that balance where we're supporting the businesses and industries in those towns where young people can afford to come back and actually make a living and live a decent lifestyle and not have to go to the big cities in order to find the income and salaries that they think they have to have in order to survive. That's when we'll see rural America take off again.
Absolutely. We've seen a big increase in a big spike in crime across the country in some of our inner cities due to soft on crime laws. Obviously, the wide open border for 4 years allowed crime to flow across the border. It went into a lot of minority communities and hurt small businesses through theft. Obviously there were some states or some cities where employees were actually nervous to even go to work. Come to work because of that. Those types of policies actually hurt minority communities the most because the crime ends up in their communities. With some of the, have you seen a spike in crime or a decrease in crime since Trump took over, or were you hearing about it over the last 4 years and how crime was impacting communities within your district?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things that have gone on there. Certainly during the Biden administration with the open border policies, we were seeing increased crime in our small rural communities as well. Since the president's taken over and the border's been shut down, that's not been as big an issue for the rural areas. We have some crime issues there, but they're more drug related. And there's certain businesses that are starting to cause some issues for the rural communities, namely the halfway house or the recovery houses. Those are starting to pop up everywhere in these rural communities. But in the cities where a lot of these immigrants have landed and kind of coalesced, we're really starting to see some major negative impacts, particularly in Memphis and Nashville, parts of Nashville. As you know, you've probably seen on the news that the president has worked together with the governor to allow the National Guard to go in to provide additional support to law enforcement there to try to get that city under control. And it's probably something that's been needed for 15 to 20 years. But glad to see President Trump identify Memphis as a troubled city and taking steps necessary to get that thing back under control there.
Yeah, I have read about the crime in Memphis, and I've talked to small business owners in other cities that have high crime issues, and they actually call it a crime tax. Because of that. And one of the sort of domino effects I saw under the Biden administration is that when large companies would leave minority communities, whether it was At the time, I think Target was talking about closing several stores across the country, like 9 stores across the country, and some other big businesses. Those anchor stores that kind of brought in traffic when they left, the impact to small businesses was so immense because the big store was gone, which was the anchor.
Hmm.
And it left just a gaping hole as far as bringing in folks, new customers into that area. And so the domino effect to small business was just devastating. So I'm glad to see that the administration is working to bring down crime. I wish it wasn't such a partisan issue. Fighting crime, I think we should all be on the same side. It seems like that's the right thing to do. But it seems like everything is just becomes a partisan issue these days, even in determining who the good guys and bad guys are.
Yeah, and look, it's not a partisan issue on the ground for the people who are actually being affected by the crime issues in these cities. I can assure you that folks that are Democrat or Republican, either one want their city to be safe. They want their kids to be able to go to school without fear that something bad is going to happen. They want to be able to drive back and forth to work or go to the grocery store without feeling like they have to go armed to protect themselves or anybody else. And so it is a nonpartisan issue, but unfortunately, the politicians continue to make it a partisan issue.
Yeah, it's a shame. Tell me about this Combat on Crime initiative in Memphis. Are you working on that program?
Uh, I think what you're talking about is something that State Senator Brent Taylor, has been working on. He has been the leading voice in the state legislature to try to, as he says, make Memphis matter. He's been trying to fight the social justice schemers and Soros-funded DA there in Memphis that are really trying to hold hands with criminals. Instead of putting them behind bars, it's a revolving door going in and out of the courthouse as people are getting arrested and within a matter of hours being put right back out on the street. And so that's been compounding the issue that we have here in Memphis in particular in Shelby County. That together with the influx of gang culture there, just there's multiple things that are popping off all at the same time that are kind of creating the perfect storm there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So I've got a couple more questions, but you are the seat that you're running for in the U.S. Congress. Currently, the Republicans hold a very, very slim majority, and obviously, you're looking to win this seat. There's a lot of competition for it. As you think about going into such a slim majority in Congress, um, what are you sort of going in with as far as your priorities?
Well, look, I think as a Republican, the first priority is to win the seat in December in the general election to hold it for the Republican Party so that we get to maintain this slim majority that we have. The second priority will be, unfortunately, to get reelected in the midterm election so that we continue to hold this majority and we'll have the last 2 years of President Trump's administration in order to get his agenda, as much of that as possible, codified into law. So I think anybody that is running for this seat that is putting a bunch of promises out there about all the great things that they want to do or accomplish in the next 10 months, the remaining balance of Congressman Green's term, are probably not being completely honest with the American people or with the voters. And that is that, the main agenda here is to hold on to this seat and hold on to the majority that we have. I've been endorsed by the House Freedom Caucus, so probably what I will be doing early on, and if I get up there, will be trying to build those relationships not only within the Freedom Caucus but also with the White House and leadership to find out where I can find common ground, where we can work together, and try to get some positive things moving for the folks in this district.
Well, I wish you luck. And I do agree with you that the education on the One Big Beautiful Bill is going to be very important, not only in your current special election, but even next year in the midterms, in helping Americans understand that not only did this bill avert a $4.5 trillion tax increase on everyday ordinary Americans and small businesses, but it will obviously help America prosper going forward. And, no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, the small business provisions that we just talked about. Our small businesses supported all of those provisions. And so I think there shouldn't be a day that goes by that conservatives should not be talking about the provisions that help everyday ordinary Americans in that bill.
Well, I totally agree. It was a huge win for regular, ordinary, everyday Americans that pay taxes and keep their communities, their state, and their government going. And so we can't allow the left and the mainstream media to continue to have the free reign to say whatever they want to say and not push back on some of the narratives that they're creating.
Absolutely. Well, can you tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and even some of your social media handles?
Sure. There is a website, jodybarrett.com or jodybarrett4tennessee.com. And then I'm on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, X or Twitter, whatever we call it these days. Twix, we'll call it.
Yeah,
And it's Jody Barrett for Tennessee.
I like that, Twix. Well, Representative Barrett, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Main Street Matters today. And thank you all for taking the time to tune in. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we will be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.